They threw him to the ground in front of his kids. What they didn't know was he's an FBI agent. It was supposed to be a reset. Jonathan Deshawn and his wife Erica had been planning this trip for over a year. With their hectic schedules, him at the FBI, her running her small dental practice, they barely had time to catch their breath, let alone take the kids somewhere peaceful. But now they were finally here. Modesto Beach, South Carolina. Quiet, warm, no headlines, no meetings, just time. Their rented bungalow sat on a corner lot painted soft blue, with a wide front porch and an old wooden swing. The place had character. More importantly, it had space. 12-year-old Marcus and 8-year-old Zoe burst out of the SUV the moment it rolled into the driveway, racing each other to the front door. Jonathan chuckled, stretching his back as he stepped out. Don't break anything before we even unpack. Erica smirked. You know they're not listening. They've been cooped up in the car for 6 hours. He popped the trunk and started unloading bags. The sun was already starting to dip, casting orange shadows across the palm-lined street. A few neighbors glanced their way. Nothing unusual. The family looked out of place in a neighborhood like this. But Jonathan had learned long ago to keep his cool. You smile, you wave, you don't give people a reason. Hey babe, can you grab the cooler? He asked, holding the door open with one foot. Erica appeared behind him, wearing a long white sundress and sandals, hair tied up in a wrap. She looked tired but happy. Already got it. Kids pick the rooms. Marcus wants the one with the bunk beds. Go figure. As they unpacked, an older white couple walked by on the sidewalk. They didn't smile, just stared. Jonathan gave a polite nod. Nothing back. Erica muttered, "Let it go." I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. They kept moving, bringing bags into the house, setting up groceries, even lighting a citronella candle on the porch. Jonathan poured himself a drink and finally exhaled. He could almost feel his shoulders unclenching. That's when he noticed the first patrol car. It moved slowly down the street, too slow to be casual. The officer inside didn't wave, just stared. Then came another one. Different vehicle, same pace, same stare. Jonathan leaned forward in his chair. That's 2 in 10 minutes. Erica stepped outside, drying her hands on a kitchen towel. Seriously? Yeah. She followed his gaze. Sure enough, a second cruiser crept around the block and rolled to a stop across the street. Jonathan stood up, already uneasy. I'm going to take a walk to the mailbox just to let them see I'm not hiding from anything. You sure? Yeah, I've done this before. He walked slowly, deliberately. Didn't dig into his pockets, didn't move fast, even nodded at the officer behind the windshield. Still no response. By the time he got back to the house, Marcus was on the porch. Dad, that cop's still out there. Jonathan glanced again now. The second officer had stepped out of his car, hand resting near his belt. You know what? Erica said, coming outside again. I'm calling the property manager. This is ridiculous. We've been here an hour. But she didn't get the chance. 2 more cruisers pulled up. Lights on. No sirens. Just presence. That's when things turned. An officer barked from the sidewalk. Step off the porch. Hands where I can see them. Marcus froze. Zoe screamed. Jonathan instinctively stepped in front of his family. This is our rental. We have the papers inside. I'm an agent. Sir, step down now. Guns drawn, no one listening. He tried again. I'm Special Agent Jonathan Deshawn with the Federal Bureau if they didn't let him finish. One officer moved in fast, slammed Jonathan against the railing, twisted his arms back, and shoved him into cuffs. Erica was yelling. The kids were crying, but nobody was listening. Erica reached for her phone, but they grabbed her too. No, I have the reservation. I can show you, she shouted. They cuffed her right there on the porch. Jonathan looked back at his children, eyes wide, mouths open, frozen. That image would replay in his head for weeks. But they still didn't ask the one question that could have changed everything. The whole street had gone quiet. Neighbors peeked out from behind curtains and screen doors, watching the chaos unfold like it was a reality show. No one stepped in. No one said a word. Erica was pressed against the side of the porch, her cheek on the wood, one officer holding her down by the shoulder. You're making a mistake, she cried. Our names are on the lease. The paperwork's inside. Please. But they weren't hearing her. Or maybe they just didn't care. Jonathan was forced to his knees on the grass. The officer behind him, young, red-faced, breathing heavy, had a knee in his back, one hand locked tight around the cuffs. "I need you to listen to me carefully," Jonathan said, keeping his voice as steady as he could. "My name is Jonathan Desson. I am a federal agent with the SIR. You're being detained." "Remain silent," the officer cut in without a glance. The other cop hovered over Marcus and Zoe, who stood trembling by the doorway. Marcus had put his arm around his sister, trying to keep her calm. "She didn't do anything," he said quietly, almost in a whisper. "Can I just check on my mom?" "Back inside," the cop snapped. Marcus flinched. "But that's my mom." Jonathan raised his voice just enough. "Let my son check on his mother. He's 12. He's not a threat." The officer didn't move. Erica struggled to sit up. "You're scaring our children." "You got ID?" the younger cop asked her coldly. "It's in my purse inside the house. So is the rental agreement. So is everything. You're too lazy to check. Don't raise your voice. You don't get to bark orders at me in front of my kids and then tell me how loud to talk. You're violating our rights." Another cop, older, stepped in. "We got a call from a neighbor. Said y'all were breaking in. No plates on your SUV. You matched the description." "Description of what?" Jonathan asked. "Of suspicious individuals." That was it. Suspicious individuals. "Let me guess," Jonathan muttered. "Black family in a nice house, right?" The older cop didn't answer, just said, "If you really are who you say you are, you'll get to clear this up down at the station." Erica's mouth dropped open. "We're not going anywhere. This is our vacation. Our kids are terrified." But it didn't matter. They were already being dragged apart. Jonathan made eye contact with Marcus as he was pulled toward the squad car. "Don't let them scare you," he said. "Stay with your sister. You're in charge until we come back." Marcus nodded, but he was barely holding it together. As they pushed Jonathan into the back seat, one of the officers finally glanced at the glove box in the SUV. "What's that?" the younger cop asked. The older one shrugged. "Looks like paperwork. Want me to check it?" "Leave it. If he's lying, we'll know soon enough." Erica was led to another cruiser. Her sandals were slipping on the gravel, her wrists red and sore from the cuffs. She turned her head, tried one last time. "Please, someone just go inside. The email confirmation is open on the kitchen counter. I printed everything. You can see my name, the owner's name, the rental address. You'll have your chance to explain," the officer said as if they were giving her a favor. Jonathan sat in the back of the cruiser, jaw tight, heart thudding, not from fear, but from restraint. He knew how this worked. He had spent years investigating law enforcement misconduct, interviewing families who went through moments just like this. He knew the reports, the excuses, the policies. Now he was in it. He turned to the officer in the front seat. "You're making a serious mistake. My credentials are in the glove box. Left side leather badge holder. Go check." The officer didn't even turn around. "We'll sort it at the station." Jonathan leaned his head against the window. The kids were still on the porch. Marcus was holding Zoe now. She looked like she wanted to run after them, but didn't know where to go. It wasn't just anger flooding his chest. It was shame, not for himself, but for the fact that his children were learning something too early, something Jonathan had hoped to shield them from, at least a little longer. But that hope just shattered on someone else's front lawn. But what those officers didn't know yet was that this time they arrested the wrong man. The police station was colder than Jonathan expected. Not the temperature, the energy, indifference, the kind that told him this wasn't the first time something like this had happened here, and probably not the last. He sat on a metal bench, wrists still cuffed behind him. The room smelled like bleach and sweat, and one of the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed every few seconds. No one offered him water. No one told him what he was being charged with. They just parked him there, like a bag someone forgot to claim. Erica was in a room down the hall. He could hear her voice through the wall sometimes. Sharp, angry, clear. She was asking questions, demanding explanations, but no one gave any. A young officer walked past the open doorway and stopped. Couldn't have been older than 25. "You the FBI guy?" he asked, standing in the doorway like it was a joke. Jonathan looked at him carefully. "Yes, Special Agent Jonathan Desson out of the D.C. field office. My credentials are in the glove box of the black SUV you towed." The kid blinked. "Why didn't you say that earlier?" "I did," Jonathan replied flatly, "more than once." The officer shifted, Awkward now. Let me check with someone. He disappeared. A few minutes later, a sergeant walked in. Mid-50s, stocky face, hard to read. You say your badge is in the car? Jonathan nodded. Glove box, left side, black leather holder, bureau seal on the inside flap. The sergeant didn't respond. He just left the room. 10 minutes passed, maybe 15. Then came the sound of shoes hitting the hallway floor. Quick steps. Another officer appeared. Same kid as before. This time his face was different. Ad checked. They had found it. Agent Deshawn. Sir. Jonathan didn't move. The officer stepped in slowly, like walking into a room he had broken something in. We found your identification, and I just wanted to apologize. This was, a miscommunication, the call we received. Stop, Jonathan said quietly. Don't say miscommunication. Don't insult both of us. The officer swallowed hard. I'll see if we can get those cuffs off. Now you're thinking. A few minutes later, Jonathan was sitting at a small metal table, wrists free, fingers rubbing the soreness out of his skin. Erica walked in, arms crossed, lip trembling, not from fear, but fury. She sat beside him. They tried to tell me it was a mix-up. She said that the neighbor thought we were trespassers, said they were just doing their job. Jonathan looked down at the floor. Their job, huh? A tall man in a button-up shirt and slacks entered. He wasn't in uniform, probably someone in charge, maybe the chief, maybe not. Didn't matter. He sat down across from them, didn't offer a name, didn't apologize. We've confirmed your identity, he said like he was announcing the weather. Jonathan stared at him. Took you long enough. You have to understand when we receive a call from a resident in that neighborhood. No, I don't, Jonathan said, cutting him off. You don't get to blame the caller. This was on you. You had 4 armed officers, 2 vehicles, and a rental agreement sitting on the kitchen counter. You didn't even ask for it. The man cleared his throat. Given the situation, I'm willing to have the charges dropped and ensure there were no charges. Erica snapped. We didn't commit a crime. He nodded slowly, trying to LD on to whatever authority he thought he had. We'll release the vehicle to you, of course. No tow fee. And will. Don't try to buy us off with waived fees, Jonathan said. That won't fix what you did in front of my children. Silence. Then Jonathan leaned forward, voice calm but pointed. Let me explain how this is going to go. First, I want a written report of everything that happened tonight, including the responding officers' names, badge numbers, and body cam footage. I also want the 911 call transcript. Second, I'm calling my supervisor in D.C. as soon as I walk out of this building. Third, you're going to explain to your officers how close they came to ruining their careers. The man stared back, unsure what to say. And one more thing, Jonathan added. My kids are still sitting on a porch alone in a town where their parents were just arrested for existing. You don't just get to move on. But as they stood to leave, Jonathan knew this wasn't over. It was just starting. Back at the house, the street was nearly empty. The sun had long set. Porch lights were on. Curtains were shut tight, but the silence that stayed. Marcus sat on the steps. Zoe curled up under his arm, still wearing her unicorn hoodie from the road trip. A duffel bag had been turned into a makeshift pillow. He hadn't moved since the cruisers left. He didn't know what else to do. When the SUV finally pulled back into the driveway, he jumped to his feet. Zoe blinked awake. Dad, Marcus ran forward. They brought you back. Are you okay? Jonathan stepped out of the passenger side. He didn't smile, just bent down and hugged his son tight, hand on the back of his head. I'm all right, he said softly. You did. Good. You looked after your sister. I'm proud of you. Erica came out next, crouching to scoop Zoe into her arms. Baby, I'm so sorry. Did anyone come by? Anyone say anything? No, Zoe said, her voice small. It got real quiet after they took you, Marcus added. One neighbor came out, stood across the street, didn't say nothing, just watched. Jonathan looked up. The same house had a porch light still on. A silhouette moved behind the window. A man, maybe mid-60s, maybe the caller. But now he was pretending none of it had happened. Jonathan opened the front door. Everything inside was just as they'd left it. Grocery bags still on the counter, towels on the backs of chairs, TV frozen on a paused cartoon. He walked over to the table and picked up the rental paperwork right there in black and white. Erica's name, confirmation number, check-in date, just like she said. His fingers tightened around the paper. "I'm calling DC," he said. "Now." He stepped out onto the porch and dialed. The number went straight through director's line. "Yeah, it's Deshawn," he said when the assistant picked up. "I need a direct patch to Ops, South Carolina. Small town called Edesto. Civilian complaint incoming. Multiple officers involved. Body cam footage requested, and I want it flagged before it disappears." He paused, listening. "No, this isn't work-related," he said flatly. "It's personal. They came after my family." Back inside, Erica set Zoe on the couch and poured her a glass of water. "You all right, baby?" Zoe nodded slowly. "Why did they do that?" "We didn't do anything wrong." Erica sat beside her, took her hand. "They were wrong, and it's not your fault. Never think it is." Jonathan came back in, rubbing his forehead. "They've already got someone working the case," he said. "I requested the audio from the 911 call. I want to hear exactly what was said and how it was said." "Think it was that guy across the street?" Erica asked. Jonathan glanced through the front window. Could be someone else. But they didn't have to believe him so easily. They chose to. Marcus stood in the hallway, arms folded. "Dad, what if you weren't with us? What if it was just me and Mom?" Jonathan's chest tightened. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I know this. We're not staying silent about it." Later that night, while Erica got the kids ready for bed, Jonathan sat at the dining table alone, laptop open. He began writing everything down, every word spoken, every action taken, every mistake made. He had written dozens of incident reports in his career. But this one felt different. Every keystroke was heavy, because this time it was his name on the line, his family, his kids. He didn't write it like an agent, he wrote it like a father. Outside, a soft knock hit the front door. Jonathan stood up slowly, glancing through the peephole. The young officer from earlier, the one who first laughed off his credentials, stood there, holding Jonathan's badge holder in one hand. Jonathan opened the door part way. The officer shifted awkwardly. I wanted to return this in person. Didn't feel right sending it back through the department. Jonathan didn't take it yet. Didn't feel right." The officer nodded. "I saw the footage. I saw how he looked. He paused. "I wanted to say I'm sorry." Jonathan studied him for a long second. "That's a start." He took the badge, closed the door quietly, and locked it. Bah. In the living room, Erica looked up from her phone. "Was that someone from the station?" "Yeah," Jonathan said. He brought the badge back. "Anything else?" Jonathan sat down next to her. "Yeah, he finally saw what we saw. But the truth is, seeing it isn't enough. Not if nothing changes after." The next morning, Jonathan's phone rang before sunrise. He stepped outside to take the call, pacing slowly across the front lawn in socks and a t-shirt, watching the fog rise off the pavement. It was his supervisor from D.C., Director Carmen Vale, voice tight, concerned. She wasn't calling as a boss, she was calling us someone who knew the storm that was coming. "I read your report," she said. "It's something." Jonathan didn't say anything. "You want us to take this public?" she asked. He took a deep breath. "Not yet. Let me give them the chance to do the right thing, but I'm not waiting forever." "All right, but heads up, word's starting to spread. Local reporters caught the arrest on a neighbor's Ring camera. The footage is already bouncing around social media." He stopped walking. "How long ago?" 30 minutes, maybe less. You're about to get calls." Lots of them. And she was right. By the time he stepped back inside, his inbox had exploded. Emails from civil rights attorneys, activist groups, former colleagues, even an old professor from Quantico. All of them saying the same thing. "We saw it. We're behind you. What do you want us to do?" Erica walked into the kitchen in leggings and a hoodie, hair tied back, phone in hand. "You see the clip?" she asked. "Yeah, it's already got 100,000 views. Local outlet in Charleston picked it up. People are in the comments trying to figure out who you are." He shook his head. "They'll know soon enough." By 10 a.m., the local police department issued a brief statement. "We are aware of an incident involving officers responding to a citizen call about suspicious activity. We are conducting an internal review. No apology, no names, just vague PR speak. They're trying to get ahead of it." Erica said without admitting anything. Jonathan opened his laptop. They'll admit it one way or another. He drafted an official letter to the Edisto Police Department's Internal Affairs Office. 3 pages, bullet points, exact timestamps, mentioned the badge, the credentials, the kids, the refusal to investigate, the abuse of force. Then he copied it to the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility, just in case. A knock hit the front door around noon. Erica opened it. This time it wasn't a cop. It was the man from across the street, the one who'd stood by his window the night before. Pale skin, khakis, golf shirt tucked in, probably retired. He looked like a guy who ran the HOA. He stood there stiffly, hands in his pockets. I wanted to come over, he began. I saw everything last night. Just wanted to say sorry, I guess. Erica stared at him. Was it you who called the cops? He looked away. I wasn't sure what was going on. You know, we don't get many rentals on this block. It's a quiet neighborhood. Jonathan stepped in behind her. Let me get this straight, he said calmly. You saw a black family unloading groceries into a rental. Heard no shouting, saw no weapons, no broken windows, and your instinct was to call in a felony. I didn't mean for it to go like that. But it did, Jonathan replied. And the next time it happens, and it will, you better think real hard about what you're afraid of, because it sure as hell wasn't us. The man didn't respond, just gave a quiet nod and walked back across the street. Erica closed the door behind him. Coward, she muttered. Jonathan exhaled through his nose, let him live with it. That evening, he got a call from a local journalist. Then 2 more. By nightfall, a national outlet had picked up the story. They'd identified him by name. FBI agent detained in South Carolina vacation arrest. The footage was everywhere now. He sat down at the kitchen table, kids playing a board game nearby, and stared at his phone. You going to talk to them? Erica asked. I think I have to. You're not just doing this for us, are you? He looked at her. I'm doing it because the next family might not have a badge in the glove box. But deep down he knew this wasn't about his title anymore. It was about his voice and whether or not he'd use it. 3 days later, Jonathan was back in Washington, seated in front of a long oak table under buzzing lights in a press conference room he'd visited many times, but never like this. To his left, 2 civil rights attorneys. To his right, a representative from the FBI's Office of Public Affairs. Cameras clicked as reporters filed and murmuring and adjusting mics. This wasn't part of the vacation plan. He cleared his throat, leaned toward the mic, and spoke. My name is Special Agent Jonathan Desson, 17 years of federal service, and 3 nights ago, I was thrown to the ground in front of my children because a neighbor thought my family didn't belong in the house we rented. The officers who responded didn't ask questions. They didn't check our ID. They didn't verify the reservation. They just saw us, heard the word suspicious, and acted like we were a threat. He paused, steady but firm. My badge was in the glove box. My FBI credentials were on file, but none of that mattered. Not until after the handcuffs. The room stayed quiet, not even a cough. I'm speaking publicly because it shouldn't take a federal title to be treated like a human being, and because far too many black families go through situations like this without the resources to fight back. The video of his arrest had passed 1 million views the night before. Some of the headlines had started shifting tone. Local police department under fire, FBI agent wrongfully detained on vacation, race bias and the cost of assumptions. But Jonathan didn't care about the headlines. He cared about the policy change. 2 days after the press conference, the Edisto Police Department held their own briefing. It was shorter, colder. The chief read a statement from a card. We acknowledge that mistakes were made during the arrest of Agent Deshawn and his wife. We are reviewing our response procedures and have placed 2 officers on administrative leave pending a full investigation. Jonathan watched it from his living room. Administrative leave? Erica said under her breath. That's what they call it. They're playing damage control, Jonathan replied. They're hoping it all dies down, but it wasn't. A local council member from Charleston called for an independent review of the department. A congresswoman tweeted support for federal accountability reform in police departments. Even the property owner of the rental house emailed an apology and offered the family a free stay in the future. Erica declined. No, thank you, she replied. We're not coming back. Meanwhile, Jonathan spent hours speaking to media outlets, community leaders, and former colleagues. Every interview was a chance to reshape the narrative, not just his own, but for every black father who ever had to explain to his kids why someone treated them like suspects for simply existing. He kept the message clear. This wasn't about one bad cop. It was about systems that respond to skin before they respond to sense. It was about why I thought they were breaking in gets more weight than here's my name and my ID. It was about how easily a peaceful vacation could have ended in violence, how it often does. One night while reviewing footage from the officers' body cams, which his lawyers had successfully obtained, Jonathan paused on a frame. The image froze on Erica, face down on the porch, hands behind her back screaming for her kids. He sat there staring at the screen. Erica walked in behind him. "You okay?" He didn't answer right away, just nodded slowly. "That's going to stay in their minds." He finally said, "The kids that night, no matter what I do, I can't take that away." Erica sat next to him. "No, but they also saw you fight for us. They saw you make it mean something. That matters too." And she was right. The kids had started talking about it less. Zoe had gone back to drawing. Her newest picture was of their house with a bright blue sky and 4 smiling stick figures. Marcus had asked to learn how to write a formal letter so he could send one to the mayor. They were healing slowly. Jonathan looked at his wife. The footage paused between them and knew this story wasn't finished. But at least now it was told. But before anything could truly change, one more conversation still had to happen. The most important one. The night before school started back, Jonathan sat out on the back porch with Marcus. The stars above D.C. were barely visible through the light haze, but they sat in silence anyway, just father and son sharing space. Marcus held a glass of apple juice. He didn't look at his dad when he asked why they think we didn't belong there. Jonathan let the question hang in the air for a second. He didn't rush the answer. "Because sometimes people are taught to believe certain folks aren't supposed to be in certain places," he said gently. "And when they believe that long enough, they stop asking questions. They just react." Marcus nodded quiet. "But we didn't do anything wrong." "No, we didn't." "So why they treat us like that?" Jonathan took a breath. "Because how the world sees you and how you see yourself don't always match. And sometimes people don't care about facts until after they've already decided who you are." Marcus finally looked over. "But you're FBI. Shouldn't that have stopped him?" Jonathan smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Son, being FBI didn't stop them, and that's why I had to speak up. Not because of my job, but because it could have happened to you or your sister. And maybe one day someone will remember what happened to us and make a better choice." Marcus didn't say anything right away, just stared into his glass. "Then I wrote something." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "Yeah." Marcus pulled a folded sheet of paper from his hoodie pocket. "It's for my English class. The teacher said we could write about our summer." Jonathan unfolded it. The top line read, "The night I learned grown-ups can be wrong." He read it in silence. Every sentence simple, honest, no fancy words. Just a 12-year-old explaining what it felt like to see your parents on the ground when you knew they hadn't done anything. When he finished, Jonathan looked at him. "You wrote the truth." Marcus shrugged. "I didn't know if I was allowed to say all that. You always are." The next morning, Erica packed Zoe's lunch and kissed her forehead as she climbed into the school bus. Marcus wore a button-down shirt and carried his essay in his backpack. Jonathan watched them leave from the porch. He wasn't the same man who left for vacation 10 days ago. None of them were. But maybe that was the point. This story wasn't just about him. It was about how close things can come to going terribly wrong when assumptions replace facts. About how authority, when left unchecked, turns dangerous. About what happens when fear is allowed to dictate decisions. And when good people stay quiet to protect bad policy. More than anything, it was about the fight for dignity. For every family who never got the badge to prove their innocence. For every kid who grew up too fast in a moment that should never have happened. So if you're listening, if you watched this and felt something, don't let it stop at sympathy. Let it move you to speak, to act, to question, and to care before the cuffs come out. You don't need a title to stand up. You just need to know when it's time. If this story resonated with you, share it. Start the conversation. Ask the uncomfortable questions. Hold your local systems accountable because staying silent only makes room for it to happen again.